Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Donna Coriel, and I am the founder of SoMeDocs. And this is another episode of From Print to Pod, where I usually host the author of those who write in our magazine in a video and podcast episode. But today, it's my own magazine article. It's called Why We Left When Medicine Judges the Physicians, but Never Itself. And it's a pretty powerful article that stemmed from a very succinct post that I shared on LinkedIn. And in it, I said, isn't it interesting that you get judged when you leave medicine, but medicine doesn't get judged because you left it? And my post got a lot of comments. It went fairly viral so far. I'm sure it'll reach even farther. And I wanted to just quickly touch on a few things that are interesting to those of you that enjoyed the article. First of all, some of what I write comes from personal experience. I left clinical medicine in pursuit of other really innovative things in healthcare that I am so proud of. And this isn't the time or the place to discuss them. But what is important is that I left clinical medicine and got approached by Medscape to write an article for them about having left. They specifically wanted me to write about how my family reacted to it, and so I did. When that article got published, it was met with a lot of reactions. Some of those reactions were very supportive and understanding, but other reactions were extremely critical. And most of those critical responses were from my peers, were from other physicians. And at the time, it stung like really badly. And I just couldn't shake that feeling that I had done something wrong and that I had done something that garnered the disappointment of my peers. Fast forward to today, many years later, and I can definitely and confidently say that I have much thicker skin these days. And the things I do, I truly believe in, and I truly know that they are good choices for the most part. I also allow myself to make bad choices and forgive myself when I do. But at the time when that was published, I took it very personally. Now, years later, when I became much more confident in what I was doing, I really wanted to build a podcast that focused on each of those really strong critical statements. And in each episode, I was going to respond to a different critical statement. And in this way, I was going to build a series that was focused on my reaction to each of those criticisms and explaining why either they weren't true or they didn't fully understand the picture and giving my side. Now, the more I'm doing this, the more I meet physicians that are extraordinary, so smart, so talented, and either leave the practice of medicine early, prematurely, or are looking for ways to leave prematurely. And the more that I meet those people, the more I realize just how healthcare is broken, because it wasn't just me that buckled under the weight. It's also so many others that sometimes cannot bear that weight and decide that leaving is better. And so you still get that reaction from peers. You're still seeing it when your peers leave. You're seeing other peers react, and those reactions are oftentimes negative. And so that, again, almost like acted as a deja vu for me to think back on when I left and all the negativity that came from so many of my peers. So I'm going to be reading just a few of these comments that are placed here on my LinkedIn page, where I posted just that statement. Isn't it interesting that you get judged when you leave medicine, but medicine doesn't get judged because you left it? So I included some in my article. Here are just a few more. Dr. Susan Vogler. Ironically, when I left clinical practice, I received more inquiries from physicians interested in my transition and how my advice could assist them in doing the same rather than facing criticism for my departure. Another comment made underneath is from, let's read Dr. Roxana B. Kearns. Being a doctor is a dream when you are 16, a goal at 20, and a life commitment once you graduate medical school. It's a path that tests resilience, compassion, and an unwavering sense of purpose, whether you practice in a laboratory, clinical environment, or innovation. What the system failed to recognize and acknowledge is the talent and cumulative societal loss we all face when a doctor leaves. Another comment comes from Dr. Grace Torres. I'm just going to move my camera just a bit so I can load more comments. Another one, okay, she says awesome insights. Another comment comes from Dr. Douglas Crone. Well put, Donna. So much is put on the shoulders of the physician in an effort to acquit the root cause. I can't stand the term burnout, for instance, as if the reasonable reactions to mistreatment are somehow a failure of personal character. And I wrote to that as a response, the shoulders of physicians have become heavier and heavier throughout the past decade, and yet physicians are still blamed when they actively choose to take that weight off. I wonder how much weight we will be able to withstand. Dr. Santino Wheat, who contributes to our article, to our magazine, quite a lot. She writes, even worse when the system assumes when many leave that they don't take a look inward. Good leaders will ask how did we fail and how can we improve? But that reflection is hard for individuals and systems alike. And I definitely agree with that. In fact, I wrote back to her, leaders and companies alike should always look within when a relationship fails. It's part of a healthy growth trajectory. When a system is experiencing the attrition of so many educated and talented individuals, it's time to start asking difficult questions. The system doesn't regularly do this, as the knee reaction of those within is that there was something wrong with the person that left. Another person, interesting comment, Dr. Carolyn Francavilla Brown, she wrote, I don't judge anyone who leaves medicine, but I do feel really sad that they had to. So I think maybe I am judging medicine. And I wrote back to her, right, the act of judgment is a very curious thing. Judgment allows us to generate emotion, which is so very necessary because it makes us alive. And I certainly don't blame you for feeling sad. We should feel sad, and that's the point. We should feel sad that this is happening when we read about it, but we should feel even more sad when we see it happening again and again. If more and more people are miserable or leaving medicine, then we must redefine how we practice and take care of patients. And others wrote this, and right, I will move my camera again because there were other comments that I could probably share. Interesting comment by Dr. Swati Shah, which I'm just actually seeing and I haven't had a chance to respond to. It's only the jealous physicians who want to leave, but feel they can't, who actually judged me for leaving. Most everyone else who knew me said, well, good, you can have a life now. And the ones who didn't say that, well, they were clueless enough to suggest that I open a private solo practice, LOL, as an OB-GYN. I haven't yet responded to her, but I can completely understand. Another comment by Sebastian Simoncelli wrote, it's wild how a personal decision becomes a public betrayal the moment you step outside the system. I love that. I really, really love that because it makes me think of a box, the system as a box, and anyone that does anything differently is stepping outside of that box, which in entrepreneurial sense and in the entrepreneurial world is lauded, right? We look up to the people that step outside of the box, the way that things are supposed to be done, and are redefining them. But in medicine, you are out, like you are ousted from the medicine society, like, right? The hoity-toity elite no longer accepts you because you have left them, like, oh, you have left everybody. But in reality, right? Why doesn't the system say, why are these people leaving? I wrote back to him, well said. Also, how are people supposed to innovate if they don't step outside of the box? That's exactly how we find solutions. And yet society is so full of criticisms. We don't know what we don't know, and that's the truth. And others, let's see. Okay. Joel O'Neill Alester Brown writes, systems and institutions often resist critique by design. Medicine is especially guilty. Its noble mission and proud history make it hard to question. Those who leave are easily dismissed as traitors to the cause, whilst the system remains unscathed. Oh, I love that. I really, really love that. Another comment said, I've met enough ex-physicians who reduced much of the practice to pill pushing for kickbacks that I know it's not because of weakness or laziness. Interesting. And to that I responded that there will always be bad apples in a bunch. So interestingly, there was a lot of visceral reaction to my statement, to which I wrote this article called Why We Left When Medicine Judges the Physicians But Never Itself. But I really wanted to leave just some food for thought to ourselves, to kind of think through systems, whether it is healthcare or medicine or anything outside of it, and those who leave, and the failure of systems to consider not only what was wrong with that person, but also what is wrong with us. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of From Print to Pod.